What's really cool about working with people internationally, a majority of our international freelancers are based in the Philippines. So it's directly 12 hours difference for East Coast people. So what's great about that is you as an entrepreneur can delegate tasks, and while you're sleeping, work is being done for you. So when you wake up, you've got X, Y, and Z completed, and you can, review everything and then delegate tasks to be done overnight.
Welcome to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, the highly rated digital marketing podcast that provides weekly digital marketing tips and strategies from some of the world's top digital marketers and e-commerce entrepreneurs that will help you take your digital marketing to the next level. Sit back and enjoy this power-packed episode hosted by Arlen Robinson, who is an e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing expert with over 20 years of experience. Hey, E-commerce Marketing Podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. My name is Arlen and I am your host. And today we have a very special guest, Brittany Brewer, who is a senior account executive at FreeUp, which boasts nearly 5 years of experience in freelancing, client support, and business support roles. Her expertise lies in building strong relationships and partnerships, and ensuring client success with FreeUp. Brittany's in-depth knowledge of the freelancing industry makes her a vital asset for delivering exceptional client service. At FreeUp, known for the top 1% of freelancers, Brittany and her team offer 24/7 support and connect clients with freelancers within 24 hours. Welcome to the podcast, Brittany.
Thank you so much for having me, Arlen. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and thank you for joining us. Really excited to talk to you today. And, freelancing and utilizing outsourced staff is something that's really huge these days. People are always surprised when I tell them, our business, OSI Affiliate Software, we've been around for over 24 years. And we started off as a full service web development agency. But when we first started, which was about basically 1999, the year 2000, between that period, freelancing and outsourcing really wasn't a big thing. It was, people were doing it. There were different sites at the time where you could find developers overseas and things like that. But it wasn't as it is today, for sure. Because when we started telling people at that time that we had employees overseas, and we worked from our home offices, people, people looked at you a little funny, kind of, somewhat at that time, as you can imagine. But nowadays, it's a little different. It's really it's been fully accepted by the whole global community, and that's really what we're going to be talking about today. How do you free up your time as an entrepreneur, specifically as an e-commerce entrepreneur, utilizing a global team? So I'm really excited to dive deep into that because that's your area of expertise. But before we do get into all of that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and specifically how you got into what you're doing today?
Yeah, for sure. So I have worked for FreeUp in some capacity for the past 5 years. FreeUp in and of itself is just a branch of our parent company, which is NextNet Media. So we've got companies like The Hoth and iWriter. And basically what our division at FreeUp does is we're a freelancer hiring platform. So I've worked on the opposite end of the spectrum and been a freelancer for FreeUp in the past, way back when I first got started. And now I help our clients find success with hiring freelancers. So sort of been on both ends of the spectrum, seen it from both sides of the coin since the beginning.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really good. And I know that helps you to do your job more effectively because you've been on that other side. And it's always good to, have that perspective, especially when you're dealing with other businesses that, you kind of know their position and the things that are of more importance to them. So it's really good to hear. Where I want to kind of start off with today is really what inspired you and your team to start building a global team to manage business operations? Where did this all begin?
Yeah, for sure. So the original founders of FreeUp were in e-commerce, and they were
Okay.
struggling to find solutions, as so many people are. They were struggling to find solutions for help in the e-commerce space. They needed to scale their business, and they were at that precipice where if we don't scale now, we're going to fail. So, they weren't having any luck finding freelance support on the freelancer hiring platforms that were in existence already in 2015. So they decided to create their own, and that's where FreeUp was sort of born, just from the innate need of two business owners who needed to scale and weren't finding solutions that work for them. A lot of times when people get to that point where they need to scale, they face the same problems that our founders face, which would be going through hundreds of applications and resumes from everyone online, from LinkedIn to hiring platforms promising the world and then not delivering. And then also
Right.
just trying to find the time in their schedule to vet the people that were going to be working for them. So that sort of birthed the solution, which was FreeUp. They wanted to free up their time, and they wanted to offer people in the space a similar solution. And from that, it led them to create the platform that housed the top 1% of freelancers. These were freelancers that they vetted themselves. They made sure that their identity matched who they said they were. They did preliminary fraud verification, and they created the terms of use and best practices that we still hold today. And that is where we really hold true to that top 1% of freelancers, is from way back when in 2015, when the original founders opened FreeUp. Those were the successes that they wanted to see down the line for FreeUp.
Okay, great. That's really good to hear. There's been so many guests that I've had on the podcast when they're talking about whether they're the founder or they're talking about how the founder started the business. And it typically comes out of a need that they
Yep.
had in the past themselves, and they couldn't find anything on the marketplace to quite meet those needs. So they built it themselves and then offered that to the whole global community, which is really,
Exactly.
really good to see. And that's usually kind of where it starts. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And sounds like you guys are definitely on track to doing some awesome things. Now, speaking of working with a global team, if I'm an e-commerce business, or there's any e-commerce businesses that are listening out there, you know, we're 2024 right now. It's pretty clear that there are many avenues that you can go to get employees to work for your company to do things.
Of
If we're
course.
looking at e-commerce, it's really common these days to get, let's say, a virtual assistant to maybe help manage your orders, maybe help with uh, updating product descriptions or adding inventory items into your product catalog within your online store. So there's a lot of these things that e-commerce engineers or e-commerce entrepreneurs are already familiar with doing. I think when we think about it, and from me talking to other e-commerce businesses, one of the challenges is how do you effectively delegate tasks to a global team and be able to do that on a consistent basis where you're not so tied up yourself just coming up with tasks for these people that you gotta, that you're currently billing hours for. What's the best strategy for that?
Yeah, it's a long answer. But just to kind of shorten the long answer a little bit, it starts with getting all of the tasks that you have at hand written down, type them down, get a document just to get started. That's where things are going to get moving. So one of the first things that we tell a lot of our clients to do, and this is whether we're chatting through email or we're on a call, is what are the menial tasks that are making you want to pull your hair out? What are the things that you're doing every day that are basically stopping your growth? You need to be doing them in order to keep operations up and running, but they're slowing you down from doing big picture stuff. 9 times out of 10, those tasks are super easy to outsource because you already know how to do them. You're already doing them. You just want to you want to free up more time in your day. So those
Right.
are really good tasks to start with, because Some of the other things that you can outsource are maybe where you have a knowledge gap. Maybe you want to hire an expert and someone, someone who has more experience in a certain field or area that you don't. That is a little bit different. That's going to take a little bit more heavy lifting to scale up on that side of things. But those menial tasks, you already know how to do them. You just don't want to do them anymore, right? You want to do
Right.
the bigger picture stuff. So we have people get those tasks outsourced first. And, the good thing about having global talent is that you're not stuck in just your community. It's not just people in Columbus, Ohio that you can hire from. It's access to global talent around the world who have worked most likely on roles similar to the role that you're looking to fill. So they know what they're doing. They've gone through the vetting process. They have the experience to kind of take over your processes for you. And then
Okay.
there are ways that you can monitor their successes. I mean, for the most part, you've already been doing these things already, right? So you have that
Mhm.
sort of litmus of how long things should be taking,
Right.
what effort needs to be going into getting these things done. So you already have that baseline there, and you already have, if you've been doing these already, you basically already have a standard operating procedure. You already have everything laid out. You know what you need to dictate. It's just getting all that stuff down on paper before you begin.
Yes. Yes. Very true. It's also it's going to take a fair amount of trust, I think, and kind of letting go of the reins, so to speak. I know a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes are hesitant to delegate certain things because they feel that, oh, okay, I want it done a certain way, and I
Yeah.
think I either me or some other long-term team members are the only ones that can really do these things. But it's not necessarily the case. Like you said, as long as they're documented and you have a clear standard operating procedure, most people, even through a global team, can pretty much manage these
Yeah.
items. And I think the beauty of the things today is we have so many forms of media where
Oh, yeah.
you can easily record things, you can easily record screen videos, screenshots. People can join you on a Zoom call, Google Meet call, you name it. I mean, it's
Yep.
almost like they might as
It's
well just
easy.
be right in your office there because of all of these forms of media. I was thinking back, like I said at the beginning, when I first started, we started outsourcing. None of that stuff existed. There was no Zoom. There was no, I mean, there was, some larger corporations or enterprise corporations had video conferencing types of solutions, but you had to be at that level to have access to that type of stuff. But back then, I think we had some basic instant messaging where I know we could chat and communicate. Other than that, it was email, and that was pretty
Yeah.
much it. As far as desktop recordings are concerned, it wouldn't be that easy to do it back then. Not,
No, definitely not. And that's
yeah,
something that we say too, okay, so you've got it written down, right? You know that
right.
you need help with X, Y, and Z. Now it's now that you know that, we can start trying to find somebody. But
Yes,
establishing the communication that works best for you, getting that communication protocol down from the very beginning, that's another thing.
yes,
Some people like to use Slack. Some people
right,
like to use other tools like Trello or Asana, or people want to be old school and just hop on a call. When you
right.
establish those lines of communication up front, that is another thing that can just take stress off of your plate. If you're onboarding
Correct.
somebody, maybe now isn't the time to be like learning a new communication method. If you're already
Right.
using Slack or something like that,
Yeah.
you can bring your freelancer into your Slack network. You don't need to be reinventing the wheel for communication. Just
Right.
establish the communication that works best for you.
Yes, yes, for sure. Now, you having been on both sides of the fence as someone that was a freelancer and then now also working with a firm that's kind of coordinating freelancers for other businesses and entrepreneurs. What have you seen? What are some of the common challenges, rather, that you've seen and that you encountered working with a global team, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. I think one of the things that one of the things from a client perspective that they have to understand from the beginning is, sometimes when people haven't ever worked with a freelancer before, they might say, well, my freelancer, John, he's great. He's doing X, Y, and Z, but I could be doing that. And the really the point of outsourcing something like that is, yeah, you could be doing it, you know how to do it just the same way that this freelancer does, but the point of having the freelancer doing it for you is to free up your time for big picture stuff. And a lot of times for entrepreneurs, because they're so hands-on, they want to do so much, when they have that free time, they're like, okay, I've got the free time now, what do I do, what's the next step?
Right. Right.
So getting an action plan in order for yourself, once you have those tasks delegated and the freelancers doing what you hired them to do, you got to have a game plan for you too. Now that you have this free time, what are the big picture things that you've been putting off? It's game time for you too. So your freed up time is being handled by the freelancer, but you've got to start filling your time up with that big picture stuff too, so you can really start to see that growth. Another thing, just from a freelancer perspective, is something that we already touched on, and that's communication. Freelancers really can do anything. I mean, we've got 75 plus skill sets that we can outsource for. But if the freelancer doesn't have the communication from the client, the project's going to fail. And it takes a little bit of heavy lifting in the beginning to make sure that you don't have to do so much down the line. So, weekly meetings are something that we really push for, especially in the beginning for the clients and the freelancers, to make sure that things are on track. And then, in the beginning, people are going to have questions, especially if they're taking over an entire process for you. So making yourself available to answer those questions in the beginning, or like you said, use a screen recorder. We love Loom. We tell people all the time, if you're doing something, just pop on the screen recorder. You're creating an SOP right there. So just getting all that stuff in the beginning and kind of taking your time and making sure the freelancer has all the resources they need, that's going to give you success, because without them, there's not much that they can do.
Yes, for sure. You mentioned Loom and a lot of these other technologies before. We were talking about Slack, and then determining what do you feel is going to be the best lines of communication for your business. And, we want to go with something that you're already utilizing, that you're already comfortable with, and then bring those team members in the fold of what you're already doing. So because you definitely need to have clear lines of communication. So that's clear. Now, there could be challenges, of course, because when you're dealing with a global team, there's different time zones. And then not only are there different time zones, you're dealing with people from different cultures. So how do you kind of ensure everybody is really kind of on the same page when you're dealing with so many different people, time zones, cultures, and things like that?
What's really cool about working with people internationally, a majority of our international freelancers are based in the Philippines. So it's directly 12 hours difference for East Coast people. So what's great about that is you as an entrepreneur can delegate tasks, and while you're sleeping, work is being done for you. So when you wake up, you've got X, Y, and Z completed, and you can, review everything and then delegate tasks to be done overnight. At the same time, though, something else that's really cool is a lot of freelancers, because the majority of their clients are in U.S. time zones, a lot of the freelancers that we have on the platform will work in U.S. time. So we allow clients to filter their freelancers based on availability. So if they wanted to work with an international freelancer who kept U.S. time, we can source that for them. So it's just, all about getting that communication up front, so we know that we're pairing them with the right person. But at the same time, there's always going to be challenges. Something that a U.S. entrepreneur is going to want to take note of is, we might just text, like regular text. We might just pick up a phone and call. But when you're working with someone internationally, that's not always the best solution. A lot of times, WhatsApp might be better. And that is something that maybe they haven't used before. A little bit of a learning curve to get used to. But once they do, super easy communication. Or Google Meet or Zoom, those are different options for communication that, it's not the same as just picking up a phone and making a text or doing a call, but it's how you can effectively communicate with a global team. So there's some things that can be done in the beginning. And like we said earlier, just establishing which communication works best for both parties. That's how you have that success.
Yes. Yeah. Really, really true. Yeah. And, it's a lot of times, because I'm familiar with kind of both, working with freelancers from both sides of things, those freelancers that are, like maybe 12 hours or so
Mhm.
apart from our time zone here in the East Coast. And, we give them stuff during the day, they work at night, and we come back in the morning, stuff is usually done. And then, we kind of repeat that cycle. But then oftentimes there's, like in our case and in other entrepreneurs' cases, they need people to work US, hours and,
Yes.
kind of working within your fold um, with those times because of, standard business operations. Now with you guys working, finding people that are working our standard US hours, is there a specific rule of thumb that you're going to want to look for when you're trying to vet somebody that's going to work your hours, but let's say it's night on their end?
Yeah.
There's certain things that you need to do because, when you're dealing with a freelancer, let's say they've never done that before, it could be a big adjustment for them to
Yeah.
work that. Is there certain things that you guys look for to find the best person for that?
Well, just speaking from FreeUp in general, FreeUp has a great team, our internal team that will listen to what the client's looking for, and then actually source the freelancers from our pool. So
Okay.
by the time that the freelancer gets matched with the client, that client is already assured that this freelancer is available in their working hours. But just in general, from an entrepreneur perspective, when you're working with someone and regardless, an interview can be really important, and that's one of the questions that we would say to discuss in an interview or a call with the person that you're thinking about bringing on. Questions like, how many clients are you currently working with? What time zone do you normally keep hours in? What's your current workload like? Have you ever worked 9 to 5 EST before? Just kind of getting an idea about that, because maybe the freelancer on paper looks great and they seem like they're really eager for the role, but they let you know, hey, I actually have 2 other clients that I work with in 9 to 5 during my time zone, but it's not a problem. I can work and do this as well. A lot of times culturally in the Philippines, freelancers do tend to take on a lot. 40-hour work week is non-existent. It's more like 60 to 80-hour work weeks.
Right.
So those are questions that are perfectly acceptable to ask. You
Okay.
want to see what the freelancer's workload is like. Is this their first time committing to non-traditional work hours? Have they done it in the past? Have they found success with it? So those are totally acceptable questions for when you're getting to know the person that you might be bringing on to help scale your business.
Yeah, good to know. Now, we talked earlier about the variety of these tools that are out there, primarily the communication tools, the Slack, you mentioned Loom. Of course, we have Zoom, Google Meetup, and these are tools, of course, to facilitate the communication. Outside of those types of tools, what are some other technologies that you recommend for just managing a global team efficiently?
Gosh, there's so many now. Like you said in the beginning of the call, having freelancers and working remotely is so huge now, especially since COVID. I feel like
Right.
we blink and there's a new technology for managing remote workers.
Right.
Some of the ones that we recommend are like Time Doctor is a great one for just managing productivity. Another one, especially if you are dealing with like clients, a client relationship manager, a CRM like Close, for example, is something that's really good to keep all of your leads in one place and keep notes in order. Also, a huge question that a lot of people seem to have this kind of fear around working with international candidates or freelancers in general is business security. So one of the things that people will ask is, how do I share my passwords? How do I share this information? And, you obviously never want to give anybody, whether they're working in office or, in another country, you don't want to give anybody your direct admin login information. So we definitely recommend third-party software like LastPass, which allows you to share encrypted passwords and things like that. Just any kind of tools that will help you with business security are always recommended.
Yeah, those are very helpful, and password very, very key as well. Those
Yeah.
types of password tools, because you got to worry about the security, and as far as just putting your passwords in a document like that others can get a hold of is kind of risky. So yeah, I definitely recommend using some of those secure password tools to encrypt your passwords and then distribute
Exactly.
it to only your team members or those people that are definitely within your organization. So as we get ready to wrap things up, Brittany, with your experience dealing with all of these different entrepreneurs that are working with the freelancers that you guys provide them, how have you seen having a global team? How have you seen that impact these entrepreneurs and these businesses' overall productivity and their work-life balance?
Yeah. It's so rewarding to see our businesses who've been with us since the beginning scale effectively and grow effectively with the freelancers that they've been able to hire. Hiring globally, obviously, hiring internationally, bottom line, it's going to save you money. And when you're trying to scale, being able to scale effectively with experienced people, but not break your budget is huge, because those initial costs can just really start to pile up. But FreeUp allows our clients the ability to connect with people who have the skills that they're looking for. They're university graduates, they have at least 3 years of experience, but it's not going to break the bank. So that's just one of the things that they can keep in mind. We have people predominantly in the e-com space in the FreeUp network as clients. And one of our biggest clients, who's been around with us since day one, came to us looking for a VA because he was overwhelmed. He just wanted a VA, somebody to help him with the little tasks here and there. And that VA has scaled with him so much that she's sitting in on VP calls now. She's basically telling him, hey, this is what we need to do today. This is what we need to do next quarter. She's running his show. So a lot of people just taking that initial step to say, okay, I need help. You can get paired with somebody who's really incredible, who can bring something to your team and bring more than you ever even thought that you were asking for. So that's just the beauty of not being limited to only hiring in your area, and being able to get connected with people across the globe.
Yeah, that's a great testimonial. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, there's so much that does come into play when you bring on these employees and these freelancers. One of the things that I've seen from our experience is that even though you pull somebody in for what you thought was a specific task, a lot of times you understand that, of course, they have a lot of other skill sets that you may not have been aware of, because they have other things going on. They've done other jobs, worked for other companies. And then what I've seen is that they can really, like you said in that example, they can do a lot more than you can imagine. And we've definitely seen that. And I think the main thing, like you said, is just don't be afraid to challenge them. If there's a new task that, you didn't necessarily pull them in to do, give it a shot. That's the only thing that you can do is, yeah, exactly. If it turns out that, if they're not a right fit for that particular task, then, you just move on, try somebody else for that particular task. But yeah, that's really kind of the beauty of it. There's a lot more they can bring to the table than you may have thought initially.
Very true.
Well, Brittany, this has been an awesome conversation. I think very timely, because like you said, after the pandemic, freelancing was already high before the pandemic. It was already very well utilized globally, but I think now it's like it's on steroids pretty much. It's That's like true. Yeah, there's so many companies that are utilizing it, and it's really become a true asset to help kind of building this whole global, I guess you could say, kind of marketplace from which to tap into. So yeah, really, really, really exciting stuff. Well, lastly, before we do let you go, I always like to switch gears just so our audience and viewers and listeners can get to know you a little bit better. If you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact that you think we'd be interested to know.
Sure. This is just an interesting kind of bizarre thing that I did for a little while. My husband and I, we converted an old school bus into a tiny home on wheels.
Oh, wow.
And while I was getting started in the freelancing world, we traveled around the United States in our converted school bus.
Okay. Cool stuff. Wow, that's awesome. So was this a full size school bus, a regular? Wow.
Yeah,
okay. And you
42 feet.
Okay. Wow. And so it was basically like an RV that you guys pretty much made.
Shower, kitchen, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, that's awesome. Awesome. Do you guys still have it, and do you still utilize it to this day?
We do. It's in RV storage right now. Okay. We're looking for a forever home, so it's a weekend getaway mobile right now. But we still have it.
Okay, that's some cool stuff. I'm sure you get a lot of attention when you roll that thing out. I can imagine people probably want to take a peek in there and see how you've outfitted it. Well, that's cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really awesome. Lastly, before we do let you go, if people want to reach out to you and pick your brain any more about freelancing or take on some freelancers themselves, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, I'd love for your listeners to head to freeuppod.com. We've got $50 in credits for their first hire, so that's up to 10 hours of work. And if they're not quite ready to hire and they just have more questions and want to talk one-on-one, there's a link there for them to book a free consultation. So freeuppod.com.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, really appreciate that offer. We'll definitely have that link in the show notes. Of course, that's FreeUp. That's FreeUppod.com, but we'll have that link in the show notes for everybody to access. And we appreciate that, the generous offer of the $50 credit towards their first hire. Well, this has been a great conversation, Brittany. We really appreciate having you on the e-commerce marketing podcast.
Thank you for listening to the e-commerce marketing podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Are you looking to take your digital marketing to the next level but are tired of weeding through countless YouTube videos with unproven and untrusted marketing strategies? Well, we have the answer for you. The More Sales Every Month online digital marketing course. In this information-packed course, you will learn effective keyword research, link building, content marketing, and much more to attract and convert your site visitors into paying customers. Just go to moresaleseverymonth.com and sign up today for a low one-time fee. In addition to this power-packed course, if you would like to get access to a growing repository of digital marketing articles, PDFs, and ebooks, check out getosi.com/resources and opt in to get full access to our library of priceless marketing information to help you take your digital marketing to the next level.